Hey guys, how's it going? This is Furgie here, back with another Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited guide, and today we are going to be looking at the second dungeon in the Ebonheart Pact. This is called Darkshade Caverns, and basically it is a huge Quama mine in the southeastern part of Deshen. It is, I guess, overrun with Quama now, and they've discovered some dark secrets at the end of it, so really not much of a backstory. But today we're going to be looking at the entire dungeon, how to encounter several adds, how to encounter the boss fights, the easy and the difficult ones, and basically I'm going to give you guys a little guide on how you can easily maneuver this dungeon. So basically you want to start out with the tank, 2 DPS and healer, same kind of combination as almost every other dungeon you want to run. That's going to work out the best for you. This run I'm actually doing with a couple of people who were just outside the dungeon. They're both DPS, but they're fairly high levels, so we actually managed to get it done. And both of them could pretty much play as tanks because they could handle the amount of damage that they were taking. So I know that's kind of cheap of me to do it like this. I was trying to find a group of a proper level, but that's just, it's quite difficult right now. You pretty much have to go to a town and find somebody to yell at to join your group, or wait outside, or get in a monumentally long dungeon queue. So this is how I've chosen to do it, but basically it works the same way. So really the add priority in this dungeon is going to be very similar to the last one. We're going to put healers above range, above melee. And there are quite a few healers. There's even some healers in some boss fights, and there's some rooms with a ton of adds. So those are going to be fairly difficult, but 50% of the add encounters are these ones with simple Quama, and then there's going to be 1 or 2 Quama warriors, and these are very easy to deal with. The Quama are very weak, the warriors aren't very strong themselves, and there's 5 or 6 of these packs, so I'm not showing all of them because they're exactly the same, and you'll get used to taking them down pretty quickly here. It's not much of a big deal whatsoever. Alright, so now let's move on to the first boss, the Head Shepherd Nalorian. So I guess she pretty much controls the Quama, and she's one of the easier bosses in this dungeon. However, she does have a pretty high DPS requirement to kill her. She has 2 healers flanked on the left and right of her, and she's also a healer herself. So I would focus on both of those healers first and take them down to keep them from healing each other, the Quama around her, and herself, because it's just going to slow down the fight for you. After the Quama are dead and both of the healers are dead, you can start nuking her. However, she does heal herself quite a bit. I mean, I had 2 veteran ones with me here doing as much damage as they possibly could, and it was still taking us quite a while to get through her health. So DPS is very important on this fight. We do work her down slowly, but it's just going to be a lot slower, and if you don't have good healing or good damage, she could kill your group pretty quickly. So I would just worry about that, worry about doing as much damage as possible, take down her healers, and she should be a pretty easy first boss. Next, after a couple more Quama packs, we're going to move into one of the largest rooms in the dungeon, and also one of the most irritating. This room is absolutely filled with all kinds of adds, and especially since we don't have a tank, you have to handle this in kind of a different way. Even if you do have a tank, here's what I would suggest. You take your tank or any melee DPS and you send them down to gather and get aggro on as many adds as they can, while your range sits up here where I am, or even further to the right on the balcony, to pick off the damage that they're doing on all of these adds. If you do this, the tank's going to have aggro, he's going to be being healed by your healer, who can also be up here if she has good enough range, and then your ranged DPS can just pretty much pick away at the priority, healer, ranged melee adds. And that's going to make things a lot easier on you, because if you just try to take this room head on and jump right in, there are adds everywhere. You might get killed even if you have a tank. People might get picked off. There might be a guy in a corner who your tank can't see, or who your healer can't see. So this is really just an easier way to handle this room. And if you sit up here, and even if you're all melee, you can just allow them to come to you, because there's only one way up. And that's going to make things a lot easier, because this is one of the most difficult rooms in the dungeon, but it does house one of the easier bosses in the dungeon. So let's get to that right now. Alright, so next up we have Foreman Lothon, and he is one of the easier bosses in this dungeon. If you can spawn him up here, if you're down in the middle of the room, he won't spawn in the middle. So I would suggest trying to do that, get down here after you kill the adds, and just leave him chilling up here for the whole fight. Really, he's just going to do some basic damage to whatever his targeted enemy is. I think he's hitting this canister right now, so we're not taking much damage at all. And then his really only other important mechanic is he's going to throw down these small puddles of gas, like poisonous gas, I guess it is, on random players, and all they need to do is just move out of the way, continue doing their damage. So he's kind of a joke, honestly. As you can see, we're not taking much damage at all, and all you have to do is avoid those piles, and he's going to melt. So really one of the easier bosses in this dungeon, the Foreman Lothon. Just a little side note, he will summon some scribs there. I had to edit this in. He will summon those little tiny scribs, so if you just can handle those and take them down while you're worrying about him, they won't do much damage. They're kind of comparable to the crabs that the boss in the last dungeon enjoyed, so if you just want to ignore them or deal damage to them, whatever you want to do, they're not going to be much of a hassle for you. So after this, we've got a few more packs of Kwama. As I said, there are quite a few of them. They're all exactly the same. Some of them are just warriors by themselves, so not much of a big deal at all. Then we're going to come into the largest room in the dungeon, which is pretty much the final room with all 3 bosses. It's just gigantic. And we're going to take this down in kind of a different manner. You want to fight through your last 2 packs of Kwama here. And what we're going to do is there are 2 bosses. Well, there's one on the left side of the room, there's one in the center, and one on the right, which is the final boss. Now, what we want to do is we want to jump down and kill the boss in the center first, along with clearing out all of the adds that he has. This is going to allow us to have a lot more room when we're killing this boss on the left, because he is one of the most difficult. The Hive Lord has a massive AoE move, and the area you're trying to defeat him in is not big at all. So it can make things very difficult on you in a group, and this move can take you down in 1 or 2 hits. So that's why, as I'll show here in a second, we're going to handle this room a little bit differently than you would expect. These guys actually taught me this mechanic here, so thank you to both of them for doing this run with me and for teaching me a few things. You're going to come down here, you're going to take down all the niches. There are a few, what are they called? Thorn something. Well, there's 2 packs of ads on the left and right sides of the rooms, different kinds of ads. You just want to take them down. There's a few of them. It'll make the boss fight down here a little bit easier. This is another pretty easy boss fight. We're coming up on the Cavern Patriarch, as you can see her, or him down there, whatever the Patriarch is. And basically we just want to come down here. We're going to take down as many ads as possible. There's only 5 or 6, I think. Then we're going to jump right onto the boss. Alright, so the Cavern Patriarch is almost identical to the Foreman, and basically all it does is it's going to have a fairly powerful like auto attack kind of thing. It's going to hit its current target, and then it's going to throw down these gas piles, which are much larger than the one the Foreman was using, but they're just as easy to avoid. So if you can manage to use your brain and stay out of those, you should be just fine in taking this boss down. She doesn't have, he or she, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't have a lot of health, and it's probably the easiest fight in the dungeon because you have so much room to deal with it. Alright, so after this, here's what we're going to do. You're going to send your tank or your strongest player up to grab the Hive Lord up past where we were a minute ago, and you're going to bring him down here. He won't reset, and you can still kill him just as easily. And the reason we have him down here is to avoid this move right here. This is this gigantic AoE, I don't know what it's called, he's digging at the ground. And it can kill your players in 2 or 3 hits if they're of the proper level of the dungeon, obviously. And so it's very important to bring him down here and do this, and really it's going to make him much, much easier. He does have quite a bit of power with his other attacks, and he has a frontal lacone that will also do quite a bit of damage, but that AoE is the most important, and if you can avoid that, you can make this boss much, much easier. It's one of the most difficult in the dungeon, so you can try to take him down where he is. It's doable for sure, but things are going to be a lot easier if you bring him down here. There's a few more scribs, just like the Foreman. Make sure to handle those, and things should be pretty easy down here for the Hive Lord and the Patriarch. Alright, so now we're moving on to the final boss, and then kind of a mini boss at the very end that I'll talk about in a second. Now we're going to take down some dwarven enemies. We have some spiders and some spheres, both pretty easy to handle. You just pretty much want to use your CC. I wouldn't have a priority because they're all melee, so just really do as much damage as you can. Take them all down. There's only 5 or 6 of them. There's a few more before this pack I show here, but if you can handle the ads before this, you should be able to handle this. Alright, now we are taking on the final boss, the Sentinel of Rakugams. It's kind of a strange name to pronounce. Bethesda and Zenimax really did that in this game. They make some of the names almost impossible to pronounce. But this is probably the hardest boss in the dungeon for a few reasons. First of all, he's very quick. Second of all, he has some very powerful and damaging moves. He has a almost one-hit, tiny frontal cone that he can use, so if you can't get out of the way of that, it might kill you. And then his most important mechanic is this huge AoE spinny move that he uses. He'll target a player, follow them around and do that, and if you're not getting away fast enough, he's almost as fast as any player. He can chop you down bare in 2 or 3 seconds. Your tank might be able to last a little bit longer, but it just kind of depends. So this is really a healing important fight as well, so your healer needs to be on his or her game. And the last move he uses, which you'll barely be able to see because we kill him too quickly, is this move where he targets all the players. He shoots missiles up in the air where they're standing, and they get bigger and bigger area of effects, and you have to avoid them or you'll take quite a bit of damage where you're standing. But basically, if you can handle all 3 of those mechanics and your healer is on their game, and your damage is on their game, and your tank is absorbing as much damage as possible, you should be just fine taking down the Sentinel and the dungeon in general. Alright, so just a quick little final boss here. This is the Cutting Sphere. We didn't actually know he was here until we took him on, but Basically, he's a Dwarven Sphere with a lot more health and who does a lot more damage. He's basically like the last boss. He has that same spinny area of effect, and as you're about to see, he has some non-avoidable one-hit move from range. I can't even really describe it, but he just absolutely murdered me right there. So watch out for that, I guess. Have your damage doing as much damage as possible and try to take him down, because he can kill your entire group with that, as he did a couple times in a previous run that I did. So I'd be careful with him, and then after he comes down, you're pretty much done with Darkshade Caverns. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. This has been Furgie. Keep looking out for more Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited videos. I hope this guide helped out. I hope it kind of taught you a few things you might not have thought of before, maybe a few strategies. Helped you get through the dungeon, hopefully with a proper group of the proper level. I know it's kind of crappy of me, but nonetheless, thanks again for watching, guys. Keep looking out for more videos, along with a lot of King's Quest that we've got coming soon, and I will see you all next time. Thanks.